Hi, my name is Gisela Pillay. Today I will be discussing six theories by seven different theorists. Um, the first is Jean Piaget, then followed by Rene Descartes and John Locke, Robert Hare, Jacob Kuhnen, Maria Montessori, and Lawrence Malaguzzi. First, let's take a look at Jean William Fritz Piaget. Piaget was born in 1896 in Switzerland and died at the age of 84 in 1980. Before developing his iconic theories, Jean Piaget studied natural history and philosophy. Piaget is known for his child development, the four stages of development, object permanence, which says objects continue to exist even though they cannot be seen, heard, or sensed. Egocentrism refers to one's inability to see a situation from another's point of view. Then there's genetic epistemology, which roughly translates to the study of knowledge, and constructivism. Piaget's theories, well, let's look at what is constructivism. Constructivism is a theory in education that states learners construct new understandings and knowledge, integrating with what they already know. This includes knowledge gained prior to entering school. Piaget believed that people construct knowledge opposed to receiving it. He suggests that the construction of knowledge is based on the individual's experiences, which are influenced by the emotional, biological, and mental stage of development. Then we look at his assimilation versus accommodation. Well, assimilation is when an individual takes new information or experiences and incorporates them into their existing ideas, while accommodation is an individual altering the existing information due to new information or experiences. Something that I found interesting that Piaget said was that children think very differently than adults. And then we're going to look at the four stages of development. Now, something that was an interesting quote is that Piaget said, "Are we forming children who are only capable of learning what is already known, or should we try to develop creative and innovative minds capable of discovery from the preschool age throughout life?" And I think as teachers, we want to push our students to be innovators. We want them to discover. So I thought that was a great quote. Now we're looking at the four stages of development. The first is the sensory motor, which generally occurs 0 to 2 years. Then there's the sensory motor stage is learning occurs through touching and feeling. Then the next stage is generally from 2 to 7 years, and it's the pre-operational stage, which is the ability to arrange objects begin to develop. Then we have the 7 concrete operational, which generally happens between ages 7 to 11. The ability to think logically about objects and events start to be more structured. Then 12 years and older is the formal operational stage. And this is where abstract thinking and verbal reasoning start to develop. Now, when I gave the ages, I said generally, that's because Piaget believed that it didn't matter that this was generally where these stages occurred, but it didn't matter when it occurred because they still stayed in the same order. In thinking of how I would implement these theories into my classroom, well, when we think about Piaget's 4 stages of development, it is important to my teaching. Providing students different mediums to learn will help them understand the information. For example, I was in one of the classrooms that I assist in. The teacher was teaching the life cycle of butterflies. And what she had was a butterfly habitat. And first she got a plant, and on that plant was the little egg, several eggs. And because eggs don't hatch when you want to, the students did get to see one hatch and observe the caterpillar. And it's really, really small. So the teacher had magnifying glasses so that they could see. And then they got to experience the cocoon and then eventually the emergence of the butterfly. So students got to experience the life cycle of a butterfly firsthand, and I think that was a great experience for them. They really understood it and loved it. Another example is when I had to do a field experience lesson, and I did it with kindergartens, and it was about the five senses. And I had things they could taste, sweet and sour items they could taste, things they could smell that was in little bottles with holes on top. I had different textures that they could touch. I had different things they could see, and different sounds, a rhythm stick, and a container with rice in it, a tambourine, so different things that they could make noise with and hear. And this allowed them, gave them the opportunity to learn about senses through experiencing it. Um, we talk about simulation and accommodation, and that's, to me, activating background knowledge. What do students know, and how can we use what they know to enhance their or improve upon that? The other thing is how Piaget's theories align with my teaching style, believes diversity in the classroom. Well, I believe that Piaget's statement that children think, process, and think differently than adults is very important. It's actually key for teachers, because as teachers, we need to change our mindsets to accommodate our students and not expect the opposite, for students to change their mindset to think like adults. And I think once we do that, once we change our expectation, it will be beneficial to students. We can understand our students better. Another thing that teachers need to, that I feel that is important, is changing our expectations from assignment to assignment. What student A can comprehend today may not be something that he understands or she understands tomorrow. For example, student A is more inclined to language arts versus math. So instead of assuming just because they did well in their English test, they should excel at math. No, we need to, again, know our students and adjust our thinking. I feel Piaget's theories are a driving force for differential instruction, and I strongly believe in differential instruction. I've seen it work in classrooms. I've seen students thrive with differential instruction. I think using various instructional strategies to gauge the student's development helps the student learn and thrive. I have included two quotes by Piaget that I thought were really great. It says, if you want to be creative, stay in part a child with the creativity and invention that characterizes children before they are deformed by adult society. So again, changing our mindset. Next, I'm going to look at Rene Descartes and Jacques Locke. Rene Descartes was born in 1596 in France, and he died at the age of 53 in 1650. He was influenced by Plato and is often referred to as the father of modern philosophy. John Locke was born in 1632 in England, died at the age of 74 in 1709. He found Descartes, interesting fact is that he found Descartes' theories interesting, and Descartes was one of Locke's influences. Descartes and Locke again reignited the nature-nurture debate. Descartes revived Plato's theory of innate knowledge, something that is within us, nature. Descartes was a rationalist. Descartes argued the truth that knowledge existed within human beings before any experiences. He developed a Cartesian doubt, which led him to his ultimate conclusion: I think, therefore I am. Looking at John Locke believed that everyone was born a clean slate, tabula rasa. Tabula rasa can be seen in Aristotle's writing, and as again we see, Locke revived Aristotle's views that a child's mind is a blank tablet that can be filled with direct or indirect experiences of the world, that nature perspective. He was an empiricist, and Locke broke his idea into two categories: ideas of sensation, seeing, hearing, feeling, and ideas of reflection, thinking, questioning, and believing. Now, again, thinking of how I can implement their theories in my classroom and aligns with my teaching style. Well, I do believe that nature nurture are 50-50, that part of our knowledge is innate and part of it is from our experiences. Um, there's this belief that undesirable behaviors are learned and therefore can be untaught and changed into desirable behaviors. As a teacher, in order to drive desirable behaviors, it's important to understand what naturally drives an individual student to want to behave as expected. So, we have those rules, expectations, and consequences, positive or negative consequences, and providing rewards to students are great. But what one student's reward that will get them to display and desirable behaviors is not the reward that another child may be driven to do to exhibit the desirable behaviors. There was a situation where a teacher gave candy, and while most of the classroom loved that, there was that one student that was like, okay, well, you're offering it, so I'm going to take it. But then a minute, 2 minutes later, started displaying the undesirable behaviors. So again, it's important for us to know our students and understand what drives them to behave a particular way. An example is I have an autistic son, and he has a sensitivity to certain sounds. Now, it's not that he has been taught to dislike these sounds, it just is. Some can argue that this is an innate reaction to sound. It is genetic. He may have weak sensitive ears, so when it hits his ears, it has an adverse impact on him. While others may argue that the experience of sound makes him dislike it. So I, as his parent, have to rethink how I approach him with different sounds. Now, there are some sounds that I have no control over, like going to a store and a child screams and cries. But then there's the other sounds that I do have control over, that I can slowly introduce to him, and at a very soft volume. And as he tolerates it more, slowly increase the volume until he's able to handle the sound. I worked with a student who was also autistic and had the same sensitivity. And one of the problematic times of the week was when we had the special music, and if it was instrument day, that would just he would just have a meltdown. So what I would do was take him outside for a walk, so help him calm down and let him know that in 5 minutes we are going back to the classroom. But if he was ready to go before those 5 minutes, to let me know and we could go back. More times than not, that helped, and he was able to handle the noise. There was those few times that he didn't. Another example is, excuse me, I believe that 99% of children are innately loving and caring individuals, and there's 1% tend to be indifferent or have unpleasant demeanors. And what I mean by this is, there was this what I observed one day on the playground was a student fell and got hurt, and this one student looked, while a couple students went to see what was wrong with the student, this one student stood there, and you could see him thinking, like, what should I do? And he takes a step back and he starts laughing and pointing. So when the teacher, after taking care of the student, asked him why did he do that, he's like, well, I didn't know, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to, but the other students expected me to act this way. So again, it's one of those things where we got to try and understand what's innate and what children learn from their environment. This is an example of why classroom management is critical. Providing students with those rules, those expectations, those consequences helps gear majority of the students, to do what innately feels is the right thing and going against what they have experienced, because then they know, again, what is the expectation. Looking at Robert Hare, he was born in Canada, 1935. He earned his master's in psychology and completed his PhD in psychophysiology. His dissertation was on effects of punishment on behavior. He worked in a prison, And during that time, he developed the psychopathic checklist. Um, as you can tell, this was used mainly in prisons and secure, high security psychiatric units. Now, this was the first time I heard of Robert Hare and the psychopathic checklist. And what Bob Bates, the author of our textbook, does, he summarizes it so that us as teachers can understand it better and relate it to the individuals we teach. He talks about the seducer, someone who charms others in a glib and superficial manner and tries to be in charge, the egomaniac, that's exaggerated high estimation of their ability, the sponge, the procrastinator, the shell, the unmovable rock, the parasite, the deflector, results merchant, the disruptor who acts impulsively, and then the delinquent. Now, again, we talk about how I would implement this theory into my classroom and defining how Robert Hare's checklist aligns with my teaching style, beliefs, and diversity in the classroom. You know, when I thought of Robert Hare's theory and his checklists, I related it to a second classroom I worked in. And I felt like most of those students were deflectors. You know, they never took responsibility for anything that happened. And they always blamed someone else. And there was that 1 to 2 that were either a seducer, egomaniac, or a parasite. And then this made me question, you know, at that age, were we all a mini psychopath? And what changed or discouraged us from becoming a full psychopath? And I have to believe that it was our teachers that help us overcome this psychopathic tendencies. You know, teachers teach us it's okay to make a mistake, own up to it, and let's work together to fix it. You know, the behavior plans, the consequences, those are tools teachers use to remedy the disruptors, the delinquents, the sponges. You know, again, this is not a foolproof, but it is a great way to understand our students. The way I see it is using this in my classroom, you know, is exactly what I said. It is another tool that helps me understand my students better. The next theorist is Jacob Koonin. And Jacob Koonin was born in 1912 and died at the age of 83 in 95. Now, Koonin was an educational psychologist and came up with a theory of classroom management. Koonin stated that it was not, his research showed that it was not how teachers dealt with misbehavior, but what was important is how they prevented students from misbehaving in the first place. And during his research, he identified 3 key actions that contributed to this: reacting to learners, that ripple effect, how teachers' reaction to individual impacts the whole class, the witness, teachers being aware of the classroom and students knowing that the teacher is aware of the classroom, the overlapping. Then the second key action was movement management. You know, the extent to which a lesson proceeds smoothly without digression, diversion, or disruptions, and that momentum to keep it going at an appropriate pace and progression. The third key action was group focus, you know, ensuring that the whole group becomes engaged in the lesson, and group accountability, making sure that the students understand that they will be tested on the subject matter. Now, again, I will look at how do I implement this into my classroom and how it aligns with my teaching style, beliefs, and diversity in the classroom. Well, Koonin states that while engaging students in a lesson, teachers need to tackle the signs that are the basis for undesirable behaviors and the consequences for good and bad behaviors in order to keep bad behaviors to a minimum. One of the things that we see when walking into a classroom is those classroom rules, classroom expectations, consequences, good or bad, and they serve as a printed reminder to students what the rules, expectations, and consequences are. In my experience, I've had the opportunity to work with great teachers who had classroom management plans and great execution. And I've worked with 1 or 2 teachers who had classroom management plan, but the execution was lacking. And those teachers would make idle threats or not follow through. So the students never took them serious, and the bad behaviors progressed worse and worse. I even had a teacher who had a breakdown one day because she couldn't handle the class, and that again was lack of classroom management. um, on the flip side to that, I had a first grade teacher. I mean, her students knew as soon as they walked into the classroom that morning, they take out their agenda, they write down their homework, they turn in their homework, then they go and work on the worksheet that the teacher has for them, and everyone is engaged and they go through the flow. And that is great classroom management. I mean, the parents love this teacher. I was fortunate to be there during a event, and I mean, the parents were just so involved, and they really did show that they loved the teacher. One of my favorite people is Maria Montessori. She was born in Italy and died at 81 in 1952. What is interesting about Maria Montessori is that she enrolled in a all-boys school for engineering at the age of 13. Um, Maria Montessori's The Absorbent Mind. Um, theory, during Montessori's observation of children, she discovered young learners birth to 6 years have an absorbent mind, during which time their motivation to learn new skills was endless. Um, she said there was numerous sensitive periods of development, and during this time, children's minds were open to learning new skills and gaining more knowledge. That movement enhances thinking and learning. Learning is relevant to the student. They become better learners. Um, all students are capable of self-directed learning. Learning is higher when there is a sense of control and order in the classroom, and students learn best from self-discovery and making mistakes. Then the last theorist is Lawrence Malaguzzi. He was born in Italy and he died at the age of 74 in Reggio Emilia. And Reggio Emilia is the theory that he developed. Now, he was influenced by Maria Montessori, Piaget, Vygotsky, and Erikson. And what Malaguzzi discusses in the Reggio Emilia approach is that it is a child-centered early education philosophy that focuses on the belief that children are powerful and capable individuals with the ability and desire to construct their own knowledge. And he argued that communication is a child's way to understand, that children believe that their questions, observations, are opportunities to learn and search, that the environment is the third teacher. Emphasis is placed on documenting children's thoughts and making these known through photographs, visual representation, explanation to show the child's learning process. Now, Maria Montessori and Lawrence Malaguzzi, how do I relate them and align them to my classroom? Well, I think that children exploration manipulatives are great ways and opportunities for students to explore, investigate in order to learn. And they are fun. An example is in ESE preschool classroom I worked in. One of the things that we had was a poster with different textures, as most of our ESE students have that texture sensitivity, and we had it on the wall, and they could go and feel it at any time, and get used to different textures. I worked in a third grade classroom on the science fair project, and the teacher had the students do the experiment. This allowed them to hypothesize what will happen, and then doing the experiment to learn what really happens. The students did a phenomenal job, and the teacher just watched and observed. And if the students had questions, instead of answering, she would walk them through by asking them questions to get them to think it through, which was a great way of having students experience and understand for themselves. The reason why I chose to summarize these 6 theories is because I think Maria Montessori is wonderful. To me, she is a pioneer, a feminist, an icon, ensuring that the cookie cut method of teaching was challenged to include children of varying abilities. She opened a school for underserved children in a town in Rome. I mean, she was an advocate for teaching children in a manner that best serves them and not those who teach them. You know, the nature nurture debate has always been at the forefront, you know, because again, I believe both impact students. So a lot of this was tied up into things I really already knew, but you know, Robert Hare and Jacob Kunin were 2 theorists that I could relate, um, because Kunin's I could relate. Um, you know, the classroom management has become such a critical element in our teaching programs. So I feel like it's a valuable, and knowing where that came from and understanding it more is a great tool. I mean, classroom management plans, we use and we go through it. So it was a great time to learn more about him. Um, I am a fan of Myers-Briggs type indicator, and I was intrigued by Robert Hare's psychopathic checklists and how it relates to the individuals. Because again, it's about seeing seeing students as individuals and catering to their individual needs. Piaget, you know, again, another iconic theorist, you know, it's just again about making the classroom function for the students so that they can be successful in their learning. Thank you very much. Bye.